If you missed part 1, don't forget to back up and go find it. It will be in the description box below. But today we're going to be speaking again with Kathy about frequencies, the sources of energy, the negative impact of home and office technology, what we can do about it now, and how Kathy is fighting her own melanoma. Listen in.
So in my first experiences really early on, when I started working with patients with frequencies, I would have people bring a list of 32 medications they're on. And in my first 8 weeks, 80% of the people I worked with were on no medications. Now that's pretty phenomenal. We didn't release them. I didn't take them away from them. They went back to their doctors and say, are you sure I need it anymore? Because they began to just notice that they're doing better. You know, things are changing enough that I would say, well, check with your doctor before you do that. And then if you don't need it and he agrees or she agrees with it, then you can begin to back off some of that. A lot of it were things like antidepressants and sleeping medications and things like that. So it's been a great experience to help people get off those drugs you're talking about.
And so, in kind, so what you're saying here is that some of the mental health is actually a frequency as well, because it's brain, and which is tissue, which is synapses, which is connectivity, which is electrical communication between cells. And so this brings open a host of different questions that people can start asking. And when people start asking the right questions, they might actually receive the right treatment for eliminating the need of those pharmaceutical scripts. This is a very exciting topic to me, because the reason that I went into the medical world, period, was to get the body to fully recover and repair, because I believed it was always possible. And on my eclectic journey, I've run across several practitioners and biochemists and people who have come up with technologies that have been highly impactful to mankind. And so this information, I have to kind of dial it back because I get really excited. I get really excited because when Tony has a frozen shoulder and she doesn't have to live on Tylenol 3 the rest of her life and destroy her kidneys and then ultimately her liver, and she can have a lifespan, a health span, not just a lifespan. That is why I'm here. That I see in many things. Tony, go ahead.
I believe that our bodies are wonderfully made. We just don't always understand how our body operates and what it needs. When we find out the tools that we can give it to help it repair, to help it heal, that's an amazing thing. Science has gone so far the past, well, we could say the past decade, but definitely the past 100 years. And so I say use that science, use that technology. I wanted to ask about frequencies. Both of you, I believe, mentioned that if you know the exact right frequency for that problem, for that cell, for that injury, for whatever that is, then here's the thing is, how do you get that frequency to your body or into your body? Like, there has got to be a particular method of how to do that. Kathy, would you like to answer that?
Yes, so there's lots of equipment out there and there's lots of thoughts about it, but I'm back to the idea of you have to do accurate frequencies. Well, if you have a plant and you plant it in the soil over here, you plant it in the soil over here, you get more sunlight on this one than you do on this one, or more fertilizer on this one than you do the other one. All of those are environmentally affected. And environment makes a huge difference on anything. But remember, Dr. Anita just told us that frequencies are everywhere. So you've seen everybody wearing magnetic bracelets. There's a bunch of different kinds of equipment that you hear names like pulse electromagnetic frequency, transcutaneous electron nerve stimulator. We have microcurrent, and we have muscle stimulators, and we could go on lasers, and all of those things use frequencies. But by the way, lasers in the outside world are frequencies going down a electrical line. Other things are happening with frequencies too. And there are other things that maybe we'll talk about in a little while that are not good for us, frequencies. But basically, you can get frequencies in a lot of things. I want to always take somebody that has a question about frequencies and say, I want it to be accurate. I want it to be rotating, where we get options and variability with the patient. I want it to be a real wide range from a very low, which you will feel. You feel that resonance, vibration, to very high that you won't feel, kind of like a dog whistle will up here that'll go too fast, or a hummingbird's wings that you don't feel. And so you have to get this wide range. And when you get that range, then you have ability to do things that are different with different people. So frequencies are everywhere, but we can take pads and put them off of equipment, and we can put them on you. It can go through your skin. We can use electrotherapy pins and things like that that go into your blood itself. You could go into pressure points or areas on your body that have meridians and nerve pathways, energetic pathways, where we unblock energy. It goes into your body to certain organs. So there's a lot of way you can do it, and some of them are attachments. And then there's this thing we call the field around us. That's the bioenergetic part of the quantum field. And we can actually have things that affect your field from the outside that don't even touch us. That is vibration. And so from the quantum world, it's not a great example, but it's basically me talking to you, and I don't have anything connected to you. There's a way that we put frequency into you with other abilities than just putting something on you. Mainly, you've got to get it correct.
I know that some people are looking at listening to music that is delivering the particular frequencies. And I know that some people have been talking about that. Do you feel like that's effective as well, Kathy?
I'm not experienced in that. Some people do remote type things with it, definitely with having, buying something that has a recording in, or even off the internet and some things like that. I do believe in a lot of that. I just work in I have this complication always from the medical side to the frequency world, where I don't want to look like I'm one of those people with a silver foil on my head with the little antennas out, because I still maintain that there is science behind this. I'm not saying that is. I'm just saying from a patient, practitioner point of view, I don't get in depth with the stuff like that. I do something I can really see an immediate effect with that patient. Anita, you have a comment on that?
I do. Actually, I have something to contribute big time in that particular area. If someone wants to educate themselves on the power of our words, of music, seriously, just the way that the energy we approach one another. There's a book, it's called The Hidden Messages in Water. It's by Masaru, Masaru Emoto. It's a pictorial of how different resonances having an effect on water crystals that are quickly frozen, and it takes the molecules and basically takes a snapshot in time of what's going on. They do experiments, scientific experiments. This particular book is not something I sell. I didn't write it. It is a resource that you can actually empower and understand what kind of water you're using. The water I get in Denver is different than the water in Lubbock. It's at a different resonance. The water in the mountains of Colorado is different than what's coming through the city water supply. Even though it started in the mountains, it actually went through a transformation in its journey.
That's right.
And so it's fascinating to learn. I hope this inspires people to aspire to know more.
I want to tag on to your talk about water, because first of all, most of our body is water.
Yes.
And water is a huge part of what we do. And there's a great big part of just water itself. Most people know this about dehydration. Number one symptom of headache is dehydration. But I think people miss a lot in the energy world. And so as I studied energy, one of the things I found out is that you get energy in primarily 4 ways. There's more ways, but primarily 4 ways. You get it from the sun. We call that magnetism. You get it from the foods you eat. There are some higher energetic foods than other foods are. You get it from grounding or earthing. That's walking outside on the beach or barefooted, walking around to get the energy from the earth, which balances people by itself. You don't want to buy anything. Go try it for a little while, see how you feel, and do it often and see if it begins to change the way you feel. And then there is something called structured water. And to make a simplified structured water is moving, flowing water. And so you mentioned coming from the mountains and stuff like that, but think of a hydroelectric power. That's all structured, moving water. It's creating electricity. So people that are kind of doubting that it really has an electrical effect, it does in your body. It brings electricity or brings vibration. It brings frequencies up into your into your body for usefulness. That alone, that structured water, can change people's lives, because not only does it fill up and get you where you're hydrated really well, but it has an energy effect in your body. And when you give energy in your body, you have a bigger field around your body, and you have electrified, so some of the equipment you want to use will be more effective for you. There are all the little protons and neutrons moving around everywhere in your body. Some of the things we call electrolytes, people are familiar with that term. But when you have that water, that makes all that stuff move around and become electrified. And now equipment works better, but so do your vitamins and your minerals and your absorption, and all of the other stuff is suddenly bioenergetically improved. So we have this ability for absorption and protein synthesis and things that are lifelong changes for people when they just are exposed to that structured water.
Okay, we have talked about frequencies and the positive effects if we have the right frequency to go to the right cell, to go through nerves, bone, tissues, everything. We can see the difference, but let's talk about, why do we need these good frequencies? There are some frequencies out there that are not so good for us, and how are we taking those in environmentally and in other various ways? Anita, Kathy, either one of y'all want to hit on that?
There happens to be fiber optics running right down my street. There happens to be cell phones. There happens to be all kinds of different conveniences running in my world for communication and operation. All of those have an effect. All of those things are actually affecting the water in this body. We need to really kind of counterbalance some of that. And there are some new technologies in the world that actually can help absorb some of that. But this is part of that, about having health assurance, because many clients in my world, they're like going, I'm not sure my health insurance is going to cover that. And I'm like, well, it's just your life. It's, it's really optional. If you want to let people dictate what kind of a health assurance you're going to have, what kind of a health span you're going to have, you can ignore all these things that we've talked about and just go ahead and stick with what somebody else is going to say is good for you. Kathy, I think when it comes to understanding whether I'm using an electronic device or I'm working in front of a panel of them, I've got to understand, I've got to deal with my environment. I have to function with electronics. And so there's some things that I do to take care of that. I would be interested to know what you're doing preventative wise, and also are there some frequency devices, technologies that you're using on a consistent basis to help negate any kind of misalignments, or what we call dis-ease in the cell structure?
I do. Actually, I mentioned this earlier, is I just got a little product. I just got it today. I can't wait to get it hooked up. But it has a whole protection mode in it. And that is to avoid all these environmental toxins of all kinds, but especially all this EMF stuff that is coming from your computers and your routers, and your computers and your routers and your cell phones and so forth. And then in this, and by the way, most frequency devices have it, if you know that ability. This is actually a wearable unit now where you can wear it and then get the protection at the same time. I have a larger unit, And I actually have the ability to scan. There are scanning devices. I'm blessed enough to have one in my office. You can scan and find out what your body finds as priorities. And sometimes it's going to find those things that say that your immunity is down, or you've been exposed to smoking or outside smoke or pesticides or herbicides or other things. And in that also, it comes up with that, EMF type stuff. Here I'm near a big city in Texas, and that is, I can see them already putting 5G on all of the posts everywhere, the light posts and so forth. The idea of that is that we all want to talk inside the buildings now instead of just out, and everybody's complaining because their cell phone doesn't work inside their metal building and things like that. So that's the idea, and it sounds great and progressive until you realize what negative effect it's going to have on your body and the cells. And so personally, as just from my point of view, as I want something to protect myself from that, I do want to continue to use it. As you said, you're using it in your office, Dr. Anita, and you have to work with a computer around you, with a cell phone around you, and we all do. And so what are we going to do to do that? I have several things. First of all, I purchased this little device for that reason of having a full-time protection if I want to. There are other things that protect, but one of the things that I've learned about protection is you cannot block EMF. If you do, your cell phone's not going to work. You want to neutralize it where it's not harmful to your body. So we're not going to get rid of it. We can't get rid of it. We're in an environment where it's never going to happen. But what we do want to make it is neutralized where it doesn't have that cellular damage to you. So I'm going to give you a personal experience, and this is going to be kind of bold. But I actually have always carried my cell phone in my pocket, in my back pocket. Everywhere I go, I wear jeans a lot. I'm a country girl. I'm out with the horses and things like that. And I've always carried my cell phone in my back pocket. Not long ago, maybe 8 months or so ago, I found out I had malignant melanoma, which is the worst of the worst of the worst. It's, skin cancers. And I've obviously been treating it with frequencies. So yay for me. And I've done really well. But that is a very dangerous thing. And then my daughter, and she turned up with a basal cell carcinoma. And guess where she wore her cell phone all the time? In her bra, in the top left-hand side. And where was the cancer? Right underneath it. And that's 2 people in one family, and I only have 1 child. So the statistics kind of went up for me to pay attention to what I'm doing. So then I started saying, okay, I'm going to start neutralizing frequencies around me. I have some things that I buy from a company that I'm really impressed with. I'm blessed enough to be in the world where I work with all the doctors, all the research. I'm not just buying something on Amazon and assuming that it's working. I'm looking at the research and the trials on it before I got it. Because I want to know, I'm not wanting to say I got this off Amazon for $5 and it's working, because it's my life suddenly that may have that cancer. I want to see that they tried it on people. I want to see the studies behind it. I want to see the research. But just to give you a little heads up, is that inside an iPhone, but inside iPhone, there's a notice in there of the safety stuff. And it says in there, you have to be 15 millimeters away from your body to not get that effectiveness. Well, guess where mine was? Right in my back pocket, right up against my butt. And so I use some things, I pay attention to it more. I pay attention to microwave. I pay attention to my router. I turn it off at night. My Wi-Fi router. I never use Bluetooth anymore. I use a little cord up for my cell phone here again. I do use Bluetooth in my car, obviously, but it's not right going from here to here. If you've ever had your cell phone and you've talked on it a long time up against your face, you know what that heat is on you? All that exposure. That's what I was getting on my butt. That's what my daughter's getting down in her breast. We have to protect ourselves from things that can cause harm. Because once you get malignant melanoma, you have it. And you're looking for a source to treat the symptom. You didn't rock it before you got the problem. So does that answer your questions of kind of what I do? By the way, I use frequencies in everything I do to block any kind of EMF and protect.
Very good.
And we have more coming up. Educate yourself more on frequencies. In part 3, we're going to be talking about our furry friends. What about our animals? What about drugs and chemicals? What can we neutralize with frequencies? Treating symptoms versus being proactive. Does that sound like a good idea? I hope so. We actually go into even more with sleep disorders and mental health. So listen in on part 3. Back up and listen to the first parts that you've missed. And if you're interested in the wearable technology we've been talking about, find it in the description box below.